Good evening. I'm Sarah Lukman, and tonight you're going to hear a story of a gentleman who has dealt with a lot of adversity and health crises. He will share with you his story and how his faith has sustained and maintained his life literally. This story will surely change your life because you can't make this up. Let's take a listen. Good evening, Kenn, and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Yeah, I am doing well. I am, as we probably all are, just so glad that this time has finally come. We have been trying to pull this together for some time. So we're so thankful that God has kept you and your miracle very much so alive. And we're going to talk about that this morning.
Yes.
Um, we know you, I know you to be the Chief Executive Officer of RamaWord Productions, but tonight, not this morning, tonight, we're going to learn more about your story. That's how just thrilled I am about finally getting this out. This evening, we're going to learn about your journey, and it truly is one that you cannot make up. So I understand when we talk about your journey, your organ donation journey, that you had not just one, but three organ transplants. Three.
Yes. Yes. Three.
So let's start there. Tell us about how do we go from one to three? What was that journey like?
Well, it all began in I was 25, and I was working my first corporate job, and thought I had the flu. Was working one day. Thought I had the flu. Was at work getting chills. Simply could not get warm up for anything. This was in May, the heart of May. 90 degrees outside in the Carolinas.
In the Carolinas.
Hot. And I was wearing a coat because I always keep a coat at work in my office. And I put my coat on, could not warm up. Go outside, stood in the sun, could not warm up. I was very, very active in my church at the time, and I had to teach a class that evening. Got to church, went to the supply closet, got all of my teaching supplies, went downstairs, set up my classroom. And after I set up my classroom, I was leaving leaving the classroom to go to the restroom for a moment. Ran into one of my fellow teachers, and they said, "Hey, Ken, you don't look so good." And I was like, "Thanks." you know,
What are you doing
I'm not used to people just coming up and saying, "You don't look good."
at?
I'm
You?
bold, right?
Right.
And so I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm not feeling too well. I think it may be coming down with the flu." And they said, "No, you don't look good. Go
Mhm.
home." So, I got a class to teach. Said, "Don't worry about it. I'll cover your class. Go home." So I said, "Okay." I got on the elevator, pressed the button up. By the time I got to the top floor, I was seeing black spots, really, really dizzy.
Oh, wow.
Broke out into a sweat and, kind of weak. As I was exiting the elevator, one of the security guards happened to be my frat brother. He caught me as I was losing balance a little bit. And, "Ken, you okay? You need some water?" I say, "No, I think I'm feeling a little sick. I'm going to go home." As I walked out of the church, I called my then fiance and told her I wasn't feeling well.
Let it
And
out.
she's like, "Well, I really don't want you home by yourself. Leave your door open. And when I get off work, I'll come get you." I said, "Okay." To sleep, she came and got me, took me to her place. Next morning, I woke up bleeding. Bleeding. She got me to the ER. After about 6, 7 hours of testing, I was diagnosed with end stage liver disease. And was referred to a doctor. And after months of testing, I was diagnosed with this rare condition called autoimmune hepatitis. Now, what autoimmune hepatitis is when your white blood cells start attacking your internal organs because they view it as a foreign object, a disease.
Mm.
Conversations with my doctor, they speculate, really don't know because it's not hereditary or anything like that. So they speculate that when I got my immunizations for college, One of them did not fully clear my liver. So my white blood cells viewed my liver as being diseased. And that's how I was diagnosed. That's how I obtained first autoimmune hepatitis.
So end stage, so we're not talking about after years of behaviors that would like drinking or what have you that would turn into, so not that. This was just rare and
Yeah, rare. I do not drink, don't smoke, no illicit drugs, end stage liver disease.
That presented itself of what you thought was the flu.
What's the flu? Exactly.
Yeah, far from it.
Far from it.
Far from that. So from that and receiving that information, so what then were you then immediately placed on a donor list? What was that process like for you?
I went through 5 years of trying to self-heal. The organ, the liver, is a regenerating organ, right? So my doctors, they prescribed me with a steroid, prednisone, high dosages of prednisone, to try to get my liver to regenerate itself.
Yes.
I battled,
right? 25?
25, freshly engaged. You know, we were engaged got engaged, about age 26. I was married at 27. All right. So freshly engaged, fighting disease. When they told me that it was a terminal disease, I tried to call off my wedding. Told my wife, I don't think you really want to deal with this. This is something that's not going to be pretty. I'm going to deal with it for life. And we were in Sunday school and she said, I'm going to be with you through it. And I'm glad she did. Yeah. I am, because I could not even imagine this journey without her. But yeah, so freshly engaged, no illicit drugs, nothing that would have been a commodity for me to develop. Cirrhosis is what it eventually led to. Cirrhosis of the liver.
Okay, then when people are viewing this, that may be a common term, cirrhosis of the liver. Okay. Yeah. So your organ donation story, again, from 1 to 3. So you started out with the first one. Was that the liver?
Yes.
Okay. So how did that, what was that process like for you? Because I'm used to hearing, and probably others that are watching this, that, the donation, you could be on the donor list for years.
Yes.
What was it like for you?
Well, God is amazing. I'm going to begin this portion with that. God is amazing. And what happened is that I was dealing with it, and I started having bouts of encephalopathy. So you've heard of CTE, right? What football players get after years of head injury, whatnot. Yeah. Well, your liver, when it becomes cirrhotic and diseased, it's no longer able to filter those toxins out of your blood. And so when those toxins are not able to be filtered, it kind of affects your brain. And you kind of have bouts of insanity, for lack of better words, is what I can compare it to. So I started having those episodes periodically, and I would have to go to the hospital. They filter my blood, all of this. And I just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. My last episode was so severe that the doctors told my now wife that he was not confident that if he allowed me to go home, that I would be able to get back to the hospital alive. So they were going to keep me until I was able to be transplanted.
Wow.
I had been trying to get on the transplant list for about 18 months at this point. Okay. I was unable to do so. They were working with me. The finances were there. I got my insurance approved, but I was working a brand new job. Had not been on the job a year, so FMLA was not going to protect my position. But God would have it that my wife and I worked for the exact same company. And because we worked for the exact same company, we had the exact same insurance. So when the company made the determination to terminate me for absences, my insurance ended at 12 o'clock on October 30th. My wife's insurance picked me up at 12:01 on October 31st.
It may terminate you, but they won't terminate that insurance. God had a plan.
Exactly.
Wow.
So they did the complete liver workup while I was in the hospital. They had me in like a semi-medical coma where I would not feel pain. I was asleep most of the time. And so once they completed the workup, the transplant committee voted to list me. I'm one of the few Black people, as what I found out, I'm one of the few Black people that has the blood type B. And so because I'm B, blood type B, I was able to be elevated to the top of my list for my blood type. So they said that the next organ that became available would be mine. Was in the hospital 5 days. On the 5th day, I felt a rigor mortis set in. Doctors had come in that morning. They told my wife my numbers were not getting better. Told me that, Kenn, it's not looking good. Your body seems to be shutting down. I felt my toes start to spread apart. I'm sure you probably heard old folks say you feel death creeping up, right?
Wow.
I felt that. I felt the numbness in my legs coming. And the doctor came in at 6 o'clock on November 17th, 2008, and said, we found your organ. It's here in the hospital. You don't have to fly out. They were preparing me to fly anywhere in the United States to get that organ.
And it was right there
It was right here in Charlotte, North Carolina at Atrium Health, CMC Maine then. Yep.
Unbelievable. But intentional and right on time, because that's the type of
right on time.
We serve.
I always say, God, you don't have to, God, I'm fine with you coming at 1 o'clock. I'm fine with you coming at 11 o'clock. I don't have to wait till 11:59.
So you start feeling the effects, and he was like, just at the grips of like you say, you feel kind of death creeping in, right? And just plucked you right from that. But like, I got something for you. I not only have an organ for you, I have an organ for you right here. So there's no transport.
No transport.
Right there. Did you experience any rejection with that rejection of the organ?
Immediately, no. I was able to live healthily for about 3 years.
Okay.
And on my 3rd year, I experienced my first rejection. And they changed my medication. I lived fine for another 2 years. In that 5th year, I went and got my traditional lab work done. And my labs, because as an organ transplant or organ recipient, you stay on immune suppressant medication. You have to get lab work done periodically. When I got my lab work done, my labs did not look so good. The doctors, they can always tell when I'm not feeling good. Sometimes they can tell I'm not feeling good before I do because they look at my lab work. So my nurse called and said, Kenn, how are you feeling? I said, I'm feeling fine. She said, your labs do not look good. I'm going to have Dr. Hansen call you. And so Dr. Hansen called me and he said, Kenn, your autoimmune hepatitis is back. Well, it's no longer called autoimmune hepatitis because autoimmune is mine. They call it alloimmune at that point because it's a donated organ that was now my body was attacking.
Wow.
And he says, you now have alloimmune hepatitis and it's attacking not only your liver and your kidneys. They biopsied my liver, biopsied my kidneys to see how bad it was, and it was really, really bad. He said, you've now developed donor-specific antibodies. And those are antibodies that come from the donated organ that are like battling your organs, right at that point. Man. and so he said, and the steroids have made you severely overweight. I'm not confident that we'll be able to transplant you again. And I said, well, can we try? He said, we can. So he took me to committee, and the infectious disease doctor said, with the amount of donor-specific antibodies that I had, my weight, and now I was older. I was much younger during my first transplant.
Right.
Now I was older. I was 35 at the time. I was 38 at the time. Excuse me. At that point, they didn't think that I was going to be successful in undergoing a second transplant.
Mm.
But Dr. Hansen, he had a friend at Duke, and he said, if you want a second opinion, I'll support you in that. And I said, okay, I want a second opinion.
Yeah.
So I went to Duke, and I met Dr. Hansen's friend, named Dr. Carl Berg.
Okay.
And Dr. Berg is the head of abdominal transplant at Duke. And he called, and his office called and made an appointment for me to come up. He wanted to put eyes on me. And I went up and I met with Dr. Berg. I love Dr. Berg a lot. He leaned back in his chair and he crossed his legs and he said, tell me your story. And I did. And he said, well, I think that we could probably help you, but it's going to be really, really risky. Charlotte had said they could not transplant me. I only had 6 months to live.
Right.
So a risky surgery at Duke was a 50-50 chance, right? So right. What did I have to lose, right? Right. Death was imminent, or I could get life, right? So I said, yeah, I'm willing. And yeah, that was my first meeting with Dr. Berg.
And then that resulted in, you said, organ donation number 2 and number 3.
Yeah.
And just listening to your account of the first thinking you had the flu, finding out that it was end stage liver disease, trying to then going through a period of time where they were trying to manage it through medication, then getting the first transplant, having that live healthily for 3 years, and then having the rejection and then go on and what have you. How has that, if at all, I don't want to assume, how has that tested your faith?
Tremendously. First, I'm always at death's door, right?
Oh, wow.
I was at death's door during my first transplant. My second transplant, I was given 6 months to live. I met Dr. Berg. He said he would take a chance on me. I needed both a liver and a kidney.
Wow.
So they said, we're going to do a double transplant. What we'll do is we'll transplant the liver, then the liver team will leave and the kidney team will come in. We're going to try to get, we need to get a donor that we can get the liver and kidney from. I had 3 trial runs.
With both
organs.
Wow. Okay. The chances of that.
Very, very difficult.
Right.
But I was listed in May, okay, of 2017. I was listed in May. I had 3 trial runs. So they would call me, they said, we have organs, we have a donor available for you, pack your bags, come. We come, they test the organs against my tissue, my blood work, and they say the liver is good, the kidneys are not. The kidneys are good, the liver is not. During that time, the organ transplant, the people who orchestrate organ transplants around the United States, they changed their rules around organ donation. And they said, well, Kenn, your kidneys are not sick enough. We're going to go through with the liver transplant. And because the major organ can sometimes cause the lesser organ to start functioning better once the diseased major organ. So like if you need a heart transplant, you also need a pancreas transplant. They transplant the heart first, the pancreas may start working better once the heart.
Makes sense.
So it's the same mindset with the liver and kidneys. And so they said, if after 6 months, this was the rule, it's called a safety net. If after 6 months, your kidneys do not recover successfully, then based on your blood type, we'll elevate you to the top of the list and get you the next available kidney. So I got my liver and immediately went on dialysis. Was on dialysis did in-center dialysis for exactly 6 months.
Wow.
January 2018 rolls around. They call me, they say, you've been on dialysis. Your kidneys are not recovering. We think it's time to start discussions to go ahead and get you your kidney transplant. I was nervous. I know I needed the kidney. I was nervous. I was scared. I didn't want to have to deal with another surgery.
Yeah.
My prayer, I said, I just want to be normal. I've never had the opportunity to be, I just want to be normal. And so we was in church. It was the Sunday, the weekend that Billy Graham had passed. We was in church and we were just finished praise and worship and my phone rang. And I reached in my pocket to get out my phone so we could do the Bible app, read the Bible with the church. And when we did that, looked at my phone, I saw that I had missed call from Duke. And I told my wife, I have a missed call from Duke. And she looked at her phone and she said, I do too.
How fast did you all get up and leave?
I said, I'm going to go downstairs and call them back. I went downstairs, I called Duke back and they said, Kenn, we have a possible kidney for you. They said, but you're not primary, you're number 3. There are 2 people ahead of you. They said, it's a kidney that we don't know a lot about, but you said you were willing to take a high risk, is what they call a high risk organ if one became available. I said, yeah, I'm still willing.
Okay.
And so they said, so go about your day as normal. Don't take your nighttime medicine. And we'll call you at midnight and let you know what to do next. I couldn't go back up because they closed the doors during preaching. So I couldn't go back into the sanctuary. I waited till church. I was texting my wife. Waited till church was over. I told her, they had a possible organ for me. So I came home, packed the bag. I ate, tried to stay up to midnight. I fell asleep right at 12:30 when they called. And they said, the organ's coming to you. Be here at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Just like that.
Just like that. And I went there. And when I got to the hospital, because I had complications, I was really, really nervous.
Sure.
And while I was waiting on them to get me ready for OR, and I kept asking, who's the surgeon? They said, we don't know. We don't know who the surgeon. Who's the surgeon? Well, such and such is on. Dr. Such and such is on. And then at 5 o'clock that afternoon, I saw Dr. Ravindra walking down the hallway. Dr. Ravindra was the surgeon that did my liver. I felt immediately happy. He walked in, he said,
taking you to the end of everything.
Right. So I was like, Dr. Ravindra, I'm so happy you're here. Yeah. So a kidney transplant takes 3.5 hours. A kidney transplant takes between 3 and 5 hours. I want to be in surgery 3 hours. And kidney patients can leave the hospital in 5 days. I want to leave the hospital in 5 days. He took my hand and he patted it. He said, Kenn, you know how you are. He said, we're going to do the best we can. I came out of surgery at 9:30 that night. I've been in surgery 3.5 hours. My kidney started working immediately because sometimes your kidneys don't work immediately. You still have to go back on dialysis for a little bit till the kidney wakes up and begins to work. My kidney began working immediately. I text my writing partner, Patricia, and gave her all the details. She's like, oh, we pray.
Yes, we are.
and then I got out of the hospital that Friday. within my 5 days.
Within your 5 days,
Within my
he
5 days,
heard you. What has
God
that
answered.
been like since though? So he's answering your prayers about the 3 days and the 5 days and the kidney and being bumped up to, the top of the list. What has life been like since? And remind us, what year was that?
2017 was August 19th was my liver. February 26th, I celebrate my kidney birthday this week.
Well, happy, you sure do, this Saturday.
Yeah, next coming weekend. Yep.
All right.
February 26th will be my 3-year anniversary of my kidney.
Amen. And the kidney has been doing well. You look healthy. What have you had to change? Let me ask you, what have you changed about just your daily living, and how has life been since the kidney, now almost 3 years old?
I try to make sure I maintain an extremely healthy lifestyle. I try to eat good. I try to get in exercise. Pandemic kind of stopped me from getting all the exercise that I need, but I'm getting back into the gym to work that out. And just trying to make sure that I stay positive and appreciate every moment of life.
I understand that you mentioned Dr. Berg, who told our colleague, Ms. Patricia, about a picture of you hanging at Duke. How did that come about, and what's that like?
So 2 years after my liver, 1 year after my kidney, Duke was kind of rebranding and remarketing their transplant center. And so they reached out to me and they said, Kenn, you've been a really good patient. You've been inspirational to us as doctors, and we feel like you would be inspirational to patients as well. You have a very interesting story, and we want to tell it. Yeah. And we would like your permission to do so. I said, absolutely. You saved my life. Whatever Duke called and asked me to do, I'm going to do.
Yes.
I don't care what. If Duke call and say, well, we want you to run a marathon around the house, I'm going to do it. Whatever Duke asked me to do, I'm going to do.
Yes.
And then, so they asked me about that, and I agreed. So they sent a film crew here to interview me and to watch me working out. And they took some pictures. And that picture now hangs on the transplant floor, along with 9 other previous patients, and pictures of the first ever transplants at Duke University on their transplant floor. And something I'm very, very proud of. They gave me a copy of the picture as well.
Yes. Yes, so inspirational for not only for other transplant patients, but as their families are walking by and seeing, because I had a chance to see the picture. I didn't know the story behind it, but I was like, I recognize that face and the strength in there and the life in there. That transplant, needing an organ, does not equate to death, because you have gone through 3 and are thriving, are absolutely thriving. That's so encouraging. That is encouraging. And your work continues. So you're not only in the halls of Duke, but also this has led you to become more involved in the organ donation community. You do some work with Donate Life NC, is that right?
Yes, I serve on the multicultural workforce under the leadership of a friend of mine, Dr. Pam Smith.
Yes, very good. So this has been full circle from, that's what we call this segment. You can't make this up, because the 3 transplants, just almost at death's door, your words several times. When you were fighting for life yourself, to lose a loved one, just one of those life events alone could take any one of us out of here. And yet God sustained you and kept you through all of that. So you truly are a miracle, and you're inspiring the other doctors at a research university where they're like always looking for, the next greatest, so that they can, serve the community. You are inspiring them. You are inspiring us. Your story not only gives life in the real world, but it also gives just the hope for those families that are watching this to say, gosh, I might be facing an organ donation situation, or supporting a family member. They can see that how this can how this can um, how this can truly be something that is nothing but God.
Nothing but.
God. We thank you for your transparency. We thank you for your yes to share your story, the details of it, so that it truly gives us a picture of what your journey has been like. Every journey is different. So we thank you for you sharing yours, and hope that this will encourage someone to become involved and donate Life NC, or to become a donor. How about that?
Yes,
Become a
yes,
donor.
please do.
So yeah, we thank you. We thank
Thank
you. And
you.
looking
Thank
forward to
you.
hearing more about those other 10. Maybe we may have another segment on those other times when you were at death's door and under a car and what have you. What have you. We'll talk about that later. Thank you, Kim. And have a
Thank you.
pleasant evening.
You too. Bye.
Take care. My goodness, I told you, right? I told you this story was simply phenomenal. And there's more to it. So stay tuned to our website for the next installment of A Living Miracle, the Kenn Wiggins story, as we hear more about the extraordinary events that began to unfold. I'm Sarah Lukman with RamaWord Productions. We want to give a big thank you to our sponsors for this evening. Thank you for supporting us. Until next time, take care.